Hey guys, Nintendrew here. For those who don't know, I am a Nintendo enthusiast and retro game collector, and just recently I packed up my entire collection and moved out of state to our new home. So it's about time I take you guys on a tour of this new studio. In this video, I'll give you a behind-the-scenes look at my game room setup, and I'll show off some of my favorite parts of my collection. Let's check it out! Okay, so as soon as you open the door, the first thing you'll see is this huge media center, which spans across the far wall. In the center is a 49-inch 4K TV, and just below that are some sections for my consoles. Altogether, there are 18 consoles in this setup, with nearly all major platforms from Sega, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony represented. In the center, I've got my Nintendo consoles, from NES to Wii U, and a Sega Genesis with 32X and Sega CD attachments. On the left is the Xbox through Xbox One, as well as a Sega Dreamcast and Atari Flashback system. And finally, on the right side are my PlayStation systems, as well as a Sega Saturn and Retron 5. Along the left side of the unit, I've got some NES games, my Super Nintendo titles, and boxed Nintendo 64 games. Although these displays might be a bit misleading. If you look behind these 64 games, you'll see I've actually got a ton more loose cartridges stored behind to fill the otherwise unused space, and that's also the case for the NES and Super Nintendo games. I've just picked some of my favorite titles to display up front, and I'm keeping the rest behind just to keep things a bit more tidy. Over on the right side, I've got my GameCube games, Wii games, and titles for Wii U and Switch. Along the top of the media center, there are 5 shelves which I've used to create little shadow box or diorama-like tributes to each Nintendo console generation. On the far left is the NES shelf, which has some cool stuff like the NES Power Glove, an NES Classic Edition console, and of course, Rob the Robot. The second shelf showcases the Super Nintendo and Virtual Boy consoles, along with some of my favorite SNES titles and a Super Game Boy cartridge. The middle shelf has my gold N64 console and a sealed gold controller, as well as some of my favorite 64 titles, including a copy of Super Mario 64, which I was lucky enough to get signed by Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario himself. The shelf to the right shows off the Nintendo GameCube, as well as some appropriate plush characters from The Wind Waker and Animal Crossing. And the far right shelf is home to the Wii and Wii U system generations with some more great titles like Twilight Princess and Super Mario Maker. On either side of the TV are a few more NES titles, and over on the left is my Elgato capture card, which I use to record and stream gameplay footage. You'll also see I've got an AV switch here, and there's a bit of a mess of cords at the moment. I've got some new AV and HDMI switches on the way, and once I have this area completely finished, the idea is to have all 18 consoles simultaneously connected to the TV, so I can swap between them with a couple of button presses. I think that'll be really cool to see in action. In the cabinet on the lower left side, I've got a pretty random assortment of games, mostly Xbox titles, as well as a ton of Nintendo handhelds from Game Boy to 3DS. I especially like these special edition Game Boy Advance SP systems I've found over the years. I am a sucker for special edition systems, and who doesn't want to play on a Game Boy with SpongeBob's face? In the other cabinet, it's a pretty similar story, just an assortment of games and handhelds. In the back here is where I keep my PlayStation titles, as well as some Sega games here and there. Above the upper shelves, I've displayed an assortment of some of my boxed consoles and special edition games and some other figures and knickknacks, that sort of thing. Moving along, the wall just to the left of the TV is where I keep my workstation. This is what I see when I'm recording videos for you guys. I've got my camera on the left side of my desk and some studio lights in either corner. This is also where I keep my Switch dock, which is connected to the TV with an HDMI cable routed behind the media center. Some other neat things to mention here, on the wall are a couple of framed issues of Nintendo Power. These are the very first and last issues of the magazine, released 25 years apart, and it was a great callback to see the editors include a new version of the cover from the very first issue for the magazine's farewell. Very cool. And finally, if you've watched my videos before, you may know that I am the proud owner of every Nintendo 64 title launched in America, and if you're wondering where they've gone, look no further. Both drawers of my desk are filled to capacity with nearly 300 titles between them. And yes, this includes the elusive Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. If you'd like to see more about the rarest 64 titles, I'll leave a link to a related video right here. Eventually, I'd like to find a better way to put these cartridges on display, but for now, the desk works well enough. To the right of the TV is the red wall, and this is the wall which you see in the back of most of my videos. For the most part, there's just some decorations and wall art, but one thing I don't want to forget to show off is this awesome neon NES controller light. This was sent in to me by FanFit Gaming, and they are a small company from Canada which produces these handmade neon lights in all sorts of awesome designs. So if you like this sort of thing, definitely check out their website. I'll leave a link to the page in the description below. Just below that are some Game Boy Advance systems, some boxed handheld titles for DS, 3DS, and Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, that sort of thing. And of course, I can't forget to mention this Super Smash Bros. Perler above the closet door. I've gotten so many comments asking where I got this guy. So I built this Smash Bros. Logo for my old game room with perler beads. It was a big project, took quite a few hours, but I was really pleased with the end result. The closet is a bit cluttered, mostly storage, but I'll give you a quick look at what's going on in there. This is Nathaniel Bandy.
Hey.
I picked him up from a local game store for about 20 bucks and was glad to add him to my collection.
Yes.
Otherwise, there are some shelves with just some cords and controllers, that sort of thing. Just a bit of storage. Bye, Bandy.
I love Minecraft.
And closer to the door, I've got a couple pieces of wall art. And a good portion of my amiibo collection. And finally, the back wall. I chose to paint this wall green for use as a green screen or chroma key backdrop so I could sit on my sofa and overlay my webcam for Twitch streams and gameplay videos. So this sofa sits opposite from my TV, and above that are a couple of shelves. The bottom shelf is home to my collection of plug-and-play systems. I think plug-and-plays are really interesting as a novelty, so I always try to pick them up when I see one I don't already own. And on the shelf above that is a collection of every Nintendo handheld launched in the US from the original Game Boy through the end of the DS line. Of course, I've also got my Funtastic series N64s here on the sides as well. On the left is Grape Purple, Watermelon Red, Jungle Green, and on the right is Smoke Black, Ice Blue, and Fire Orange. And off to the right, I've got my Game Boy and DS game binders. If you've watched the channel before, they probably look familiar. I like to store these games this way for ease of access, so I don't need to go searching through the shelves to find a specific title. If you're interested in some other game collecting tips and tricks like this one, I've got another video you might want to check out linked in the upper right corner. Well guys, that's about it. I really hope you liked this new updated game room tour video, and if you did, please let me know in the comments what games or systems caught your eye. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Nintendrew for all sorts of cool gaming content, and share the video with any friends who might find it interesting. I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey guys, thanks for checking out this new 2017 game room tour and sticking it out through the whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what I'm doing and would like to help out even more, I've got a Patreon link on the right side of your screen, and otherwise I hope you'll keep an eye out for more videos in the coming weeks. Take care.